solve. They provide a quadratic equation and they're asking you to solve it, and they want you to use one of the methods indicated, either completing the square, factoring by square root, or quadratic formula. Now the easiest thing to do is to be able to factor it if possible. Now if I try factoring this trinomial, factors of x squared will give me x and x. Factors of 29, the only factors of 29 are 29 and 1. And that's a positive, so they should have the same sign. They need to add up to a positive 6, so they both should be positive. And they're not going to add up to a positive 6, because that gives you 1 plus 29 adds up to 30x. So therefore, this cannot be factored. So, cannot factor it. By square root is a very specific problem, and this is not one of them. I can either complete the square or quadratic formula. Now, you can always use the quadratic formula. It will always work. But in this case, we can complete the square because we have an x squared, there's no leading coefficient, and your value of b, it's even. So that'll make it much easier. So let's complete the square. Now to complete the square, we want to place the x's on the left, and the numbers, or the number in this case, move it to the right. We have x squared plus 6x. I'm going to leave some space for my square, and move the 29 to the right becomes a negative 29. Now to complete the square, I want to take the formula is b divided by 2, and then you're going to square it. The value of b is 6. So 6 divided by 2 gives you 3, then square it gives you 9. So it's a very quick process. So basically just think about taking half is 3, square gives me positive 9. So it's going to be positive since we are squaring it. Now I'm going to factor the left hand side. Factors of x squared will give me x and x. Factors of 9 are 3 and 3. They need to have the same sign, since this is a positive 9, but they need to add up to a positive 6, so therefore they both should be positive, equal to negative 20. This should always be the same, so we can rewrite it as x plus 3 squared equal to negative 20. And now we can solve it. And that's what's called completing the square, because you end up with a square. So now we can take the square root on both sides. The square root and the square cancel, so I have x plus 3 equal to square of 20. You can do the factor tree to simplify the square of 20, or a perfect square that divides 20 will be square of 4 times the square of 5. That is 20, but I need negative 20, so therefore we have a negative 1. Negative 1 times 4, negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. If you have a negative, we know that that's an I. That's basically the definition for I. Negative 1, the square of negative 1 is I. The square of 4 is 2, and we still have a square of 5. But let's not forget the plus or minus. Every time you take the square root on both sides, you end up with a plus or minus. And the last step will be to move the 3 to the right. It's a positive 3 becomes a negative 3. And notice the location of the I. The I goes between the 2 and the square root. And that'll be your solution.